Name is Sophie Stern, and I am a writer. And my debut novel just came out about 6 weeks ago, so I am freshly published. I live in Sydney with my two favorite people in the world, my husband and my son. And I also have a corporate job, which is not my creative practice.
Yes. So you are working around your corporate work, I'm assuming.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So I work 4 days a week in my corporate job and then creativity around that.
Yeah. Do you have a routine for your creative work?
I do now. So when I first started writing my novel, I was working full time and then I was also looking after my son when he was very young. Now I have Fridays off from my day job, and so that is my precious, wonderful writing day, which I really preserve for writing and writing only, really. So after I drop my son off at school, I either come home or I go to the library and I write for a few hours. I find that sort of about 2 or 3 hours is usually my limit for good quality writing. And then in the afternoon, I'll do research or tinkering or reading, or maybe a bit of sort of free writing and exercises and things like that.
Do you do any writing on any of the other days, or is it you just keep it all for Friday?
It's pretty much Friday now. I did originally feel like I needed to write every day because that's sort of what you hear, that it should be something you do every day. But I just found that that didn't work for me at all, sort of with a busy job and with childcare and sort of everything in between. And what I have actually found I really love is that I have Fridays where I'm writing and I'm really focused on writing, but I'm still working on my novel in the spaces between. I'm thinking things over in my head. I'm having conversations with characters. I'm reading. I'm noticing things in the world, writing notes in my notes app, all those sort of things. So it's not like it's just the Friday. It's more like that's the writing day, and then I'm jumping between those days, in between.
Do you find that having that as a locked in day, that it allows the thoughts the space that they might need?
Absolutely. Yeah, in every other component of my life, I'm a very organized person. I'm very structured. I work in a very structured job. I like spreadsheets. And so there is this sort of freedom that comes from knowing that Friday is the writing day. And it's almost like I've trained myself that that's when my brain switches over to the creative side. And because it is this precious time, I really don't waste it. I'm not procrastinating. It's really from 9 o'clock when I sit down at my computer to 3 p.m. when I pick up my son. I have to set an alarm to make sure I don't forget to pick up my son from school because I do really get in this flow state. So I really embrace that time and love it a lot.
Mm. What is your process for your writing? And there's a double whammy question. Um,
Mm.
and I'm going to come back to spreadsheets because I love spreadsheets. Uh,
Excellent.
what is your creative process now for your writing? And is it different to your first book?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question because I feel like it is, well, I thought it was evolving because when I wrote my first book, it was very messy and chaotic, and I didn't know what I was doing. I was really feeling my way through it. And so when I went to write my next book, I thought, I've done this once, I know how it all works, and I was a lot more deliberate about trying to plan it out and plot it out. And that just didn't work at all. It felt almost sort of dead on arrival. There was no spark or joy in it. And I was really struggling. And it was almost like I needed the struggle. I needed to work my way into it. And I just abandoned that completely and took one very small piece from that draft I was working on and then just started again. And I'm now in the messy, chaotic, totally pantsing it routine again. Yay.
Okay, I love talking. It's my favorite way of writing too.
Yeah.
It is so interesting that you say that it was feeling really dead because I've put the one I've been working on at the moment. I was with screenwriters, so I mapped it all out and plotted it all
Mm.
out, and it felt like it was the right thing to do, and just it killed it for me.
Yeah, that was exactly what I did too. I had all the little palm cards sort of spaced out and I had the arcs. And I thought that, I've cracked it. This is going to be super easy. And it wasn't alive. It wasn't fun. So I'm really enjoying being back in my pantsing.
Excellent, excellent. So what changed for you from the first one to this one?
I think a lot of it is confidence,
Mm,
knowing that I have done it before and knowing that it is this messy, chaotic process and sort of embracing that and enjoying that a lot more. Seeing how many iterations you go through to get to the finished product, I think is quite comforting in a way because when you're first writing and you have this enormous gap between the absolute vomit that comes out in that first draft, at least in my case, it's just getting mess out of my head and trying to form some sort of shape out of it. But I think that's the fun bit as well. That's when you're sort of forming these ideas and picking at things and following leads. And now that I know that it does take time and it is part of the process that you're finding the idea as you write it. Now I'm just enjoying it. Now I'm really embracing it and not putting as much pressure as I was when I was writing the first one.
mm. Um, tell me about your spreadsheeting because I love a spreadsheet. I spreadsheet everything.
Yeah.
I'm in Europe at the moment. It's a spreadsheet. Uh,
Yeah.
each
Love it.
each manuscript I write has its own spreadsheet. Everything I do goes into a spreadsheet. So tell me about your spreadsheeting. Do you use your spreadsheets for your writing?
Yes. So I use spreadsheets a lot in my personal life, sort of childcare in particular, school holidays. There's a day mapped out for every single school holiday day. In terms of writing, for my first novel in particular, because it was a dual timeline novel and from two points of view, and over a span of about 20 years, I had a spreadsheet where I really needed to track every single year the age of both of the characters, the sort of key points, and give that bird's eye view. Um, so that's really where I use the spreadsheet for the first novel. Something I just started doing actually in the second one, which is something I picked up from my friend Josh, is even though I'm not planning forward, is using the spreadsheet to sort of plan backwards. So looking at what I've written so far and sort of roughly mapping that out and writing notes to myself as I go along. So the sort of reverse outline in a
Mm,
way. And I'm finding that is actually really helpful to keep track, particularly because I do only write on Fridays. It sort of gets me up to speed quite quickly with, oh, okay, I was just finishing this particular scene and I wrote a note to myself, why don't we try this next time or let's come back to this.
mm. So leaving notes for yourself, basically.
Yeah, it's sort of like a trail of breadcrumbs.
Oh, I love that. I love that. I'm smiling quite widely because I do that as well. So each scene I
Oh,
write, I
okay.
drop it
Yeah.
into the spreadsheet to say this is what it was trying to do. And
Yeah.
it just helps me to then kind of look at it in the bigger picture in the spreadsheet
Yeah.
and know.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly, exactly. And actually, that reminds me, I did when I was doing the really big revision of my first novel. That's when the spreadsheet really came in handy, just tracking every single scene, every single chapter, asking what's the purpose of this? What's the tension point? what's the question it's asking, what's it leading to, particularly because it was moving between past and present, just really trying to make it work in these
Mm.
various arcs that I had to pull together.
Mm. I think they are very useful with dual timelines because I have used
Mm.
one. Well, one of my manuscripts is dual timeline, and
Mm.
like knowing what day is what as well is super useful, and how old they are.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. And all the little things that trip you up. You're like, oh, okay, they would have left university by then, but suddenly they're sort of in high school or, all those little details that you don't necessarily pick up when you're just reading it as a text.
Yeah. Sophie, can you tell me where from where you get your inspiration?
So it's one of those things that sounds a bit weird, but a lot of it is just images coming to me. So with the first book, it was really an image of a house that stuck with me and this idea of a house on a cliff. And then I feel like once I have a bit of a sense of an image or a vibe, it's almost like the whole world becomes this scavenger hunt where you're pulling ideas and snips of dialogue or things you're reading or things you're watching, things you're seeing, and all of those sort of pull together and they come into the book somehow. So they're the strands, I guess, of inspiration. I love reading. I read a lot, but also I find other art forms really useful and inspiring as well. Going to the art gallery, watching movies, because you can still get ideas that are very applicable to writing, but there's less of a sense of comparison in a lot of ways. It sort of frees you up. And I also come from a very musical family. Both of my parents went to the Conservatorium of Music. So that background in classical music in particular and sort of structure and rhythm and sound, that is something I really use quite a lot. And I create playlists for all of my writing and I really use music to get me into the mood as well for writing.
Did that upbringing with having both of your parents as musicians, did that influence you in any way into your writing?
It probably influenced me in the opposite way in that my parents were very worried about me going into a creative career in a lot of ways because it's a bit more precarious. Um, but it also made my whole childhood very imaginative and creative, and it was always the focus. Music and reading, I think, were the two things that if we were doing it, we weren't disturbed. And so I'm sure that has influenced me in a lot of ways.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, I always wonder about that, people who have grown up in creative families, you know, more likely, I think, to see
Mm.
that creativity is just a part of living. Like
Mm.
that's what we do. Do you find, is there a real difference for you in your working life to your writing life? Is there?
Yes, it's chalk and cheese, I find. And I used to be quite hung up on that in feeling like I needed to have a day job, quote unquote, that was more aligned to me creatively. But in the last few years, I've actually found a lot of freedom in having a job that's quite distinct because it uses a totally different part of my brain. And it gives me a lot of other things as well. It gives me stability, it gives me friendships, it gives me structure, and creativity gets to be something that's really for me, that's joyful and this bonus thing. So I now have embraced having both of these components of my life. And I think also I really now into the idea of the good enough job, that you don't need to get everything from your job, that you can get certain things from a job and then certain things from your hobbies and your other activities, and they can sort of coexist, and that makes up a meaningful life.
Mm. Yeah, I agree. I think having there was I can't remember which person it was that I interviewed, and they talked about how having that life outside of writing actually just feeds their writing, um,
Yeah,
and that we need to kind of live in the world around us.
absolutely. And I think having that friction and going out into the world and coming across people you wouldn't necessarily when you're working in an office job, all of that feeds in. That's character, that's conflict, that's really good stuff.
Yeah. If you were to be chatting with someone who was early on in their career, or or was wanting to dip their toe into writing, or moving, I don't know, maybe was stuck,
Hmm.
what advice would you want to share with them? What wisdom?
The wisdom that really unlocked writing for me was something that the author Rumam Alam said on a podcast that I listened to, where he said, no one's going to give you permission to write. No one's going to give you an invitation. So stop waiting for it. You have to make the time, and you might have to sacrifice other things in your life. You might have to not go to the gym or clean your house or see your friends, but you have to take that time because no one's going to hand it to you on a plate. And that was what was really a sort of light bulb moment for me when I heard that, because I always had this sense that I should be writing, that I need to write, that I have to write, but it was just not something I prioritized because there's always something else that feels more important. Writing can feel optional, but you have to make it important in your life. So that would be my advice.
Yeah, yeah, I love that advice. Especially, I think, it's, I don't know, I hear this from a lot of writers, and they can't find the time to write. And I think you have to make it, because
Yeah,
it's not going to, you're not going to find it. You
yeah,
actually have to make it a
exactly.
priority.
Yeah.
Um, Tell me, what is home for you and your creative work? What does that mean for you?
I am lucky now that I have my own space to write at home. Before a couple of years ago, I was really writing in libraries a lot, which is probably my second home, I would say, in terms of writing. But now I have my own dedicated space, which I love because I'm a big potterer and I love pottering around my room and rearranging it, and that helps me think. And that's the physical home. I think the mental home is when I'm in that space where I am thinking about a new story and it's all starting to come together. And it's just this really exciting period where it's all possibility, and it feels almost like you're living in between two worlds where you've got this imaginary world and your real world, and they're coexisting and you're pulling pieces from each. And that is just the best space to be in. I love that space. I feel like I'm in that space at the moment with my second book, so I'm really
Mm,
I'm really enjoying it. Once you've got the foundations and it's just picking the decorations that go on the walls, that's the fun bit.
I love that so much. This next book that you're writing, is it in the same genre as your first? And maybe just tell us a little bit about what is your first book, uh,
Mm,
title, etc., etc. Maybe you can hold
sure.
it up
So,
if you have it there.
yeah, sure, I do. Here's one I prepared earlier. This is my
Oh,
book,
oh,
What Is Left for Us. It is a modern family drama about two sisters from Bondi who haven't spoken in 10 years, and then they inherit their grandmother's house and are forced to confront the sort of secrets and betrayals that tore them apart. Um, so my second book is in some ways also along those lines. It's very much about relationships and the interior lives of people. But I am more in a coming of age world rather than these are in their late 30s, the women in this novel. Um, and I had hoped when I was writing my second one, I was really determined that it would be a single point of view linear plot. And again, that hasn't worked out that way. I've got at least three points of view now that are talking to me. So, um, yeah, but it's fun. I think there's always a story you think you're going to write, and there's a story that it actually is. So I'm just playing around with that and having fun with it.
Yeah. The joy of being a pantser.
Yeah, exactly. Ooh,
You get to
shiny
be
thing.
surprised
Yeah.
about, oh, what? You've turned up as well. I have to write you in
Yeah,
as well.
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. What do the plotters do when that happens for them? They go, no, 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 you're not
Yeah, I
allowed.
wonder. I wonder. I
Yeah.
am jealous that the plotters get to have spreadsheets though.
Oh, I just lost you for a moment there. What did you say?
I just said I'm slightly jealous that the plotters get to have spreadsheets though.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Well, this one that I'm writing now, I did plot it all out in a spreadsheet, and there's like formulas
Yeah.
but I got about 10 scenes in and I'm like, oh, that's no, I don't want to do that next thing
Yeah. Yeah.
because the
Well,
character's
that's it.
telling me
As
they
you
want to do
write your
something else.
yeah, exactly right. Exactly right. You're like, but I want to go that way.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm still kind of using that formulaic spreadsheet
Mm.
where it's actually doing some calculations like this is how much you have of Act One. This is
Oh, wow, yeah.
yeah. Yeah. Yeah. So
That's something. Yeah.
yeah, can spend a lot of time on these things and not do the writing.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining me today, Sophie. And links to your book and where people can find you will be in the show notes. Um, and the title of the book again is
What is left for us?
What is Left for Us?
Yes.
Fantastic. Thank you so
Thank
much, Sophie.
you. This has been so lovely to chat.